Hey, what's going on? Welcome. If you are new here, please subscribe, click the bell, ding the dong, bing the bong, all that great stuff. Share everywhere, including your YouTube community tab. Please and thank you. And also, if you want to donate, you could donate through Super Thanks. That is located where the subscribe button is. And also, you could donate with Cash App. That is $Spade Parkland. And also, you could join the channel membership by clicking the join button near the subscribe button. I do weekly live streams for channel members. So join that if you want to be a part of the channel member live stream. So Sarah saw the scalpel and she remembered her veins being used to tell her to take out the teddy bear. She saw that and was like, I got this mission. I got to do it. She was contemplating. She's got to do it. Christy comes in. Sarah says she can't sleep. Christy offers some tea. Sarah leaves the scalpel for now. Sarah says Christy and Kenny make a cute couple, and Christy tells her Kenny is friend-zoned because she's engaged to Marielle. Kenny should have moved on to somebody else, a colony house or somewhere. So, fun fact, from what I've seen on the MGM IG, the actress who played Christy originally was supposed to, well, the character Christy was supposed to originally get with Kenny. So it was going to be Ellis and Fatima, Christy and Kenny. The wedding scene actually could have been Fatima and Ellis, Kenny and Christy, both couples getting married. But the actress who plays Christy, and I think I've mentioned this before, she's mentioned this, that she wanted her character to be queer. And that's the reason why they had Marielle on the bus. Because if you think about it, everyone who comes into Fromville with a family member, even if that family member is not on screen, they're mentioned, like with Dawn and her sister, everyone comes in together. The only instance where someone comes in separately from someone they know is Christy and Marielle. So Marielle was brought into Fromville on the bus so Christy's character could be queer. And she even changes her hair season 2 to further drive the point of being queer. And I think that's the reason why Christy and Marielle were sidelined season 3. And if you think about it, it would make more sense if it was Julie, Randall, and Christy in the dungeon. And then when Boyd smashes the music box monster, or the music box and defeats the music box monster, that it'd be Randall, Julie, and Christy freed, and that would give Christy more of a purpose as far as storyline. Marielle was, in my opinion, put in the dungeon to give her something to do. Christy was sidelined. The role that we had you with Kenny, we can't do that anymore because you got Marielle, and now you got Christy's character and Marielle not really having anything to do. Maybe they'll give them more to do season 4, but usually when it comes to a show or even a movie, you'll have one medical person. So for them to have 2 medical people, I think is more reason than not that by pivoting and adding Marielle to the cast, it changed a lot of stuff story-wise. Sarah reveals that Nathan saved her. Sarah asks if there was something Christy could do to see Marielle again for everyone to go home, even if it was something bad. Christy asks what Sarah's talking about, and Sarah deflects and says she wonders about this place, what it means, why they are there. Sarah asks if someone came to you and says, do this one bad thing and everyone gets to go home, would you? Sarah never reveals what it is, which is more of Sarah accepting being dark. Season 3, she says that she has no soul. I agree, because Sarah does little sneaky stuff like what she's doing now with this hypothetical. She's having Christy address a hypothetical question, but not saying what it is. Sarah never reveals what it is, but agrees to this being hypothetical. But it's not hypothetical, Sarah.
I ain't gonna do this mess no more.
Sarah's like, oh, it's hypothetical. If you just do this one bad thing and you go home, would you do it? And of course, Christy agrees because she doesn't know what the bad thing is. The bad thing could be ripping off the head of a rabbit, stepping on some bugs. It could be chopping down a tree, burning down someone's house with their belongings in it. It could be a whole host of different things. Sarah purposely keeps that information from Christy, but Christy does give an answer. And so Sarah, seeking validation, makes it seem like Christy giving an answer to a question she doesn't fully understand is the green light to go after Ethan with a scalpel. Sarah, you are trash.
Slayer.
Christy saying, yeah, I would do it hypothetically. Sarah takes that as validation and wanting to harm a teddy bear and is like, you know what? Let's go. That's the wrong answer, Sarah. But Sarah's going to do what Sarah wants to do, and she does. Jim is saying that the answer is something that we haven't asked. Tabitha's like, well, everyone who's been trapped here has asked all the questions. Here's what I'm thinking with this. When it comes to Jim, this is going to be a stretch. It's going to be a yoga stretch. I think that the man in the yellow suit knew Jim. And I think that Jim also knew the man in the yellow suit. They knew each other. Here's how I come to this stretch, this yoga stretch. The man in the yellow suit told Jim over the radio, your wife shouldn't be digging that hole, and referred to Jim by his first and last name. Now, we know the man in the yellow suit is not a creature. When it comes to the creatures in human form, they're not as strong as the humans. We saw that in the scene with Boyd in the barn, where the creatures in the human form were trying to restrain Boyd to make him watch Tien Chen. If you go back and rewatch that scene, Boyd actually was handling all of the creatures and pushing them away, getting the Tien Chen Lu. The creatures had to turn into creature mode, which makes them stronger and injure Boyd to be able to restrain him. Same thing with the creatures that were holding Tien Chen. One of them had to transform in order to do things to Tien Chen Lu. In human form, the creatures are the same strength level, maybe even weaker than the humans. The man in the yellow suit was more strong than Jim. Jim even picked up a branch, swung it. The man in the yellow suit caught it at the most lethal part of a swing with an object. The man in the yellow suit caught it, had no effect. He ate it. Okay. No effect. Put Jim up against the RV, ripped out his throat. The man in the yellow suit did not have to transform to do that. And he did that. The man in the yellow suit is not a creature. He's got to be something else. Him referring to Jim by first and last name, maybe it or Fromville tells them everyone's name. It is possible for that. I think that the fact that he used Jim's first and last name. Remember, he said, is this Jim Matthews? As if like he knows Jim. Every time. Hey, sometimes it is a internet show. Sometimes it's a comedy. There's only like 3 times where someone is going to wear a suit that is not a dark color like blue, black, maybe even brown. For the man in the yellow suit to have on a yellow suit like that, I know a lot of you all have said the Curious George, the guys with Curious George, but to be honest with you, the only time someone's going to wear a yellow suit like this, with it being very long and not ironed, like it's not ironed at all. It is very sloppy looking, not ironed. Most of the time, a suit is going to be somewhat fitted to the individual. Look how baggy it is. It's even dirty as far as on the bottom, like he's been rolling around. Even the shirt is dingy. And the only time you're going to have a situation like this is if it is someone who is in the art field, an entertainer, or maybe they work for like the circus or something. Most of the time when you're thinking about a circus, let me pull up some pictures. A clown or the ringmaster Malatsi for the Universal Circus performance. He's got on a yellow suit. He's a ringmaster. You all might be thinking like, ain't no way. Look at him and look at how dingy he is. And so the same way this guy looks like this. Let me get one more example. I know you are going to be like, no, ain't no way. Ain't no way. Lemon yellow ringmaster mascot costume character dressed with yellow, dressed with jacket and bracelets. All right. So you get the picture. Okay. You get the picture. It could be red, it could be orange. The idea is that they're wearing a color associated with warning. Red, yellow, orange, they're all warning colors. And that's what's popped up as far as being ringmasters. I'm thinking the man in the yellow suit is actually like a ringmaster or an entertainer, and that's why he has his yellow suit. Only thing is, I think that he, along with the original townspeople, maybe other humans in Fromville, they made deals with it or the devil, and they wound up in Fromville as a part of whatever they wanted from it. So if you're talking about a ringmaster, how many circuses are currently active in the world? Not many. The circus is one of those things where it has to be extravagant and popular for people to want to go to it. And I'm thinking the original townspeople, they made a deal with it to have eternal life so they could be prosperous or whatever. He may have been with a failing circus as a ringmaster or an entertainer. He wanted to live forever. He made a deal with it. But in him living forever, he may have been cursed to Fromville to wander it and roam it. And he, maybe the creatures and everyone else, they want to leave Fromville. The man in the yellow suit, with him more than likely, in my opinion, being entertainment, or let's just say for this theory, in the circus, that is how he knows Jim Matthews. Jim was an engineer for an amusement park. Amusement parks are usually associated with a circus. You'll have a circus, a fair, some type of amusement attractions for circus, for fairs, and maybe the amusement park is how Jim came in contact with the man in the yellow suit. However, Jim knows of him, maybe doesn't know him personally, but when the man in the yellow suit appeared in front of him and Julie, Jim never asked the man in the yellow suit, "Who are you? What do you want?" He never asked any questions. He just went into attack mode. He kind of did the same thing with Victor. There's an argument that, well, with Victor, he didn't ask any questions. He came upon Victor sitting with Ethan at the booth and was thinking worst case scenario. Whereas the man in the yellow suit, he came from one direction, Julie came from another direction. And Jim immediately went into attack mode, didn't ask any questions, didn't say, you don't have to do this. Jim immediately picked up something and said, stay back. The way Jim addressed the man in the yellow suit was kind of like Jim may have recognized him from the past and realized this dude was a threat. And with the man in the yellow suit saying Jim Matthews, as if he knows Jim as well. And I think that's pretty much how they may know each other, because we don't know how long Jim has been in the amusement park business to be an engineer working on attractions. But it would make sense if the man in the yellow suit has been dealing with the circus for like a long time and he knew of Jim, and maybe the attractions that Jim was working on, maybe they helped out the circus, maybe even saved it. And maybe the man in the yellow suit can go from Fromville back into the regular world the same way the boy in white can. And I think the man in the yellow suit would only want to come back into Fromville because he may have to keep doing the ritual or a ritual in order to continue to have everlasting life. So same way the creatures, in my opinion, they have to constantly drink blood to stay alive. I think the man in the yellow suit has to do something as well, maybe doing a ritual, drinking blood himself or something in order for him to stay alive. And that's the reason why they stay in Fromville, because they can do that in Fromville without necessarily being impeded by other forces. Or it may be that they can exist in the real world for a certain period of time and they have to go back to Fromville to keep from being deleted or something. It just would make sense that the reason why the man in the yellow suit, when talking to Jim on the radio, addressed Jim by first and last name as if he knew him. And then Jim, when seeing the man in the yellow suit, didn't really ask any questions, just immediately went into attack mode like he already knows this is bad news, this is a bad guy. The man in the yellow suit, when he was addressing Jim and saying your wife shouldn't be digging that hole, he's never referred to Tabitha by name. He did refer to Jade by name, saying that Jade sure can play. It just sounds like the man in the yellow suit was talking to Jim like they had been knowing each other. I wouldn't be surprised, and just hear me out. I wouldn't be surprised if season 4, it comes out that Jim has more of an attachment to Fromville than he's been letting on. Or maybe he doesn't remember for whatever reason. Or maybe he was hiding it because he didn't want to scare Tabitha. A lot of maybes, a lot of possibilities, but I do think that the reason why the man in the yellow suit has the yellow suit because he was an entertainer, maybe a ringmaster for a circus, and that's how he has a connection with Jim. Jim was working on amusement attractions and an amusement park, and they have come in contact with each other, but maybe Jim doesn't remember or just didn't want to say. But it just seems kind of odd that the man in the yellow suit would refer to Jim by first and last name and say your wife shouldn't be digging that hole. And I think it's because the man in the yellow suit was able to see the future, in that it was more of a warning that if she digs the hole, things that we're supposed to be working on together will mess up. Because it just didn't really sound like he was threatening Jim. It was more like he was warning Jim. The tree of the knowledge of good and evil is a tree in the Garden of Eden that God forbade Adam and Eve from eating. The tree was not poisonous, and it did not make Adam and Eve sinful. Instead, it provided them with the opportunity to obey or disobey God. So Adam and Eve realized they had reached their godlikeness without learning obedience. They realized they were like children who want tools they don't know how to use and end up hurting themselves. The man in the yellow suit told Jim that his wife should not be digging that hole on the radio, but he only confronted Jim after Jade played the violin and Tabitha and Jade remembered or knew who they come from. He didn't confront them. He confronted Jim as if like it was Jim's job to keep Tabitha from going on the path that she was on, because Jim, starting in season 1 of episode 5, Silhouettes, Jim is ultimately responsible for Tabitha getting into the theory business and starting her path to remember who she comes from. It was all Jim. And I think that Jim was originally tasked with preventing Tabitha from remembering who she comes from, and he failed his mission. Pandora's box is a metaphor for something that brings about great troubles or misfortune, but also hope. So in Greek mythology, Pandora's box was a gift from the gods to Pandora, the first woman on earth. It contained all the evils of the world, which were released when Pandora opened the box. So when the man in the yellow suit was talking to Jim and says knowledge comes with a cost, that means that gaining new information or understanding often involves some form of sacrifice, difficulty, or negative consequence, implying that not all knowledge is easily accessible or comes without challenges. So based off of seeing season 1, 2, and 3, Jim didn't gain any knowledge. Jade and Tabitha did. So if someone is going to pay the cost for this new knowledge, it should be Jade and Tabitha, not Jim losing his life. And I think the reason why Jim lost his life, in my opinion, is not because Jade and Tabitha's eyes were open, but it's because Jim was tasked with not allowing them to open their eyes. He just didn't remember. So I don't think Jim is necessarily reincarnated like Jade and Tabitha, but I think that Jim was tasked a long time ago with being able to do this, but for some reason he lost his memory or something. So there's a responsibility with knowledge. Once you know something, you can't unknow it, and this can lead to ethical dilemmas or burdens of responsibility. So an example is a doctor might say, knowing the risks of a certain procedure comes with a cost, as it may cause anxiety in some patients. A detective might say uncovering the truth in this case comes with a cost, as it could put innocent lives at risk, as in people who know the truth may be killed so they don't testify in open court. And I think that's what's going on with Jim as far as this whole knowledge thing. And he was supposed to be in the way, but ended up putting Tabitha on the theory path because his mom was a music teacher, solved the riddle of the pieces of paper in the bottles on the faraway tree. So the next morning, Jim continues looking at the wall with all the questions on it. Tabitha asks him if he's figured it out, and Jim jokingly answers 12. Well, this foreshadows Jim saying in season 3, episode 10, that the 2 and 7 were backwards in the numbers on the paper. There's 12 notes in the musical scale. And his mom was a piano teacher, and that music is a universal language. This is going to be a stretch, it's going to be a yoga stretch. Jim's bloodline may be musicians. We don't see Jim playing a musical instrument, but for him to just have that knowledge from his mom being a piano teacher, and she probably taught him some stuff. Maybe his bloodline comes from a line of people who were playing music and teaching music. Jim's ancestor may have been the one to put the numbers on the pieces of paper and put them in the bottles on the faraway tree. His ancestors came up with all that, and that's how he knew the answer. It's almost like his ancestors were talking to him in the future. At first, I was thinking maybe it was Jade that did that, but on season 3, episode 10 of the bottle tree, Jade plays the violin. Tabitha sees the ghoulish children arriving, as does Jade, though Jim cannot see them. As Jade keeps playing, one child approaches Tabitha. After Jade finishes the song, the child approaches Tabitha and tells her "Ankui." Tabitha realizes that the word means remember. Tabitha runs off, and when Jim asks what happened, Jade only says that they used to sing them lullabies. So singing a lullaby, which has words, doesn't have anything to do, well, it has little to do with actual music notes. Jade says that he was able to kind of hear the song in his head once Jim told them that it was music notes, the 12 notes in a scale. So even though that came to Jade's mind when he realized they were like music notes and he was able to play it up with the violin, I think just the idea came from Jim's bloodline. A universal language refers to a means of communication that is understood by people across the globe, regardless of their native language. While there is no single spoken language that everyone understands, many consider music and mathematics to be universal languages as they transcend cultural barriers and can be interpreted by people from diverse backgrounds. And I think that may end up being a thing, that Jim's bloodline, they communicate with each other through music. Okay. So Tabitha not only had visions of her being a little girl in Fromville, and it was determinism that she arrived in Fromville, I think it was also determinism for Jim to get with Tabitha. And that whole thing is Jim was supposed to be helping out the evil side, but ended up helping out the good people because he may have forgotten or didn't know what he's supposed to be doing. According to Jade and the show, there really is no free will. People are brought into From for a purpose. They're brought into From on purpose. Some of the extras could be random people. It could be that. But the people who are main cast on the show, they're brought in for a reason. And you could say that Jim was brought in to get Tabitha in the theory business, solve the numbers on the pieces of paper in the bottle tree. It just seems like Jim, if you think about it, Jim has been the only person on the show to solve any mysteries or to do anything meaningful. As far as he made the radio work, he got Tabitha in the theory business. He's the one that pointed out later on in season 1 that the cords in the walls don't go anywhere. The cords are fake. The lamps should not be lit up. And that's what prompted Tabitha to start digging. Also, Jim came with the idea of the numbers on the pieces of paper in the bottle tree are music notes. It's been Jim, Jim, Jim this whole time. It's been Jim for the win. Okay. Hashtag Jim for the win.
I didn't choose this life chose me.
Hashtag Jim for the win.
Interesting.
Yeah, the whole time it's been Jim for the win. If you think about it, Jade's been seeing stuff, but what has Jade really figured out? Same thing with Tabitha. What has Tabitha figured out? It's been Jim figuring out everything. And I think it's because he is more connected to Fromville than meets the eye. It's a yoga stretch. I got it. But I'm telling you, I could be wrong about this, but season 4, we're going to see more of Jim being connected to Fromville, even though he's deceased by the end of season 3. He may come back as a ghost and be like, oh yeah, I didn't want to tell you this because I wanted to work on our marriage. But by the way, the man in the yellow suit, that's my daddy.
I didn't anticipate it to be this wild though, by the way.
That's my daddy. He disappeared. That's why I've been an engineer in the amusement park business. He's my daddy.
Super easy, barely an inconvenience.
So Jim repeats that everyone arrives from different parts of the country, sees the same fallen tree. Tabitha points out that everyone has asked the same questions and asks what difference writing on the wall will make. Jim explains that there is something that they aren't seeing yet, like being able to see former lives, Tabitha, okay? You got to have an open mind.
Ew.
I know, right? Got to have an open mind. So what do you think? Let me know in the comment section your thoughts. Thumbs up the video, share your social media, subscribe, click notification bell. Thanks for watching. Go forth, do great things, and I'm out. Peace.